Now let us test it further. I say Alice. Now that's exactly what will work over here as well. But let's say if the last name is more than 15 characters, like something like Wordsworth and Fire. Now, could this be more than, let's say, Wordsworth, Fire, and I don't know how many characters long is it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Wow. So I put Fires, it accepts. This is exactly 15 character long. And now let's say I put a Y and hit enter. You see, the moment I enter the 16th character, that means it's exceeding 15 characters, I get this error. You can try retry or just click on cancel. I say retry. And just enter Waters for now. That should be fine. Now, come back to the email address validation later. Now, date of birth. I want this to be in a specific range. So first, we have settings under this validation criteria. I have a date. Now, if I leave this as it is and just click OK, it will give me an error. You must enter both an end date and a start date. Now, end date, it's the date of birth, right? So it cannot be the same as today's date or any time of the future. So we need to have an upper limit and a lower limit. Let's say the start date, which would be something like 1 Jan 1940. And then for the end date, we have something like, it must be greater than 20 years because the understanding is by the time you complete your graduation, you must be around 20, 21 or 22 years of age at least, right? So let's give a benefit of doubt, and over here in certain exception cases, the students might just get a degree while they must be still at least 16 years of age. So here in this case, I would say today. We have an interesting function called as today. And what I would like to do is, before that, I say we'll use eDate function in Excel, the eDate function wherein the start date is today. I want that jump by 18 or 16 years before. So that's 16 years multiplied by 12. Now, if you would be able to relate to this if you would have visited the video on date functions there. eDate, generally, it helps you jump by number of months. Now here, starting from today, we are jumping back by 16 years. But here, this argument should be in the form of months. Hence, we are multiplying it by 12. Now click OK. Here we have this. Now let's say I have the date as 10 October 1990. It accepts it. Now let's say I want to put, instead of 1990, I put 2019. You see, it does not meet the criteria. What is 16 years from today? Today it's, we are in 2021, February 2021 currently. So 16 years before 2021, that would be what? 2005? Let's try with 2005. We are in the month of February, so it will still give me the error. But what if it is January or 1st Jan 2005? Well, it accepts that. What if it is 1st of February? It does accept that, but the moment I hit 1st of March, the moment I hit, say, 1st of February, it takes that. And now I put 1st of March, it returns an error because that's exactly 16 years from today. And what about I put 1 Jan, or rather, let's say 31st December, okay, 31 December 1939. That's just one day before the start date that we had specified. It gives an error. But what if it is 1 Jan 1940? It accepts it. So here we have successfully made validation for date over here, wherein they can just select the range, but we know for sure that they fall at least 16 years before. Now, in case if there is further exception, they say, no, we have certain cases wherein a 15-year-old has also cleared the graduation, then probably we can come back and change this over here to 16. Instead of 16, we can make this to 15 and hit enter, and that works. Maybe you want to change the start date as well. That's still fine. Now, that's the date format. Now, for the home state, like I mentioned, there could be a scope for errors over here. A same person may be, making human manual errors. So I don't want to let that happen. Instead, I would want to give a drop down over here such that it meets the criteria of this list over here, right? So how do we do that? So we'll go to data validation. We'll select list. Now, before we select that huge list, let me also show another way of entering your data. Here, you can just type in the names. For example, we have Alaska, and then we have Michigan, Ohio, and then we have Iowa. For now, let's stick to these names over here, and one more, Texas. We have 5 names here, and click OK. Now here we see a drop-down button over here. I click on this and I can see the list of states over here. I can just select them manually. That's the way how I can enter, and it works. But in case if I realize that there is an error in the way how I spelled one of the states, I might have to come back here, select that state and just edit it. That's it. Each state name separated by a comma and no data mentioned in double quotes. Now let's say this would be quite cumbersome. Let's talk about having 50 states over here or 51 names. It would be a long list. I have a better option. I'll just wipe this out, clear, and instead the source, I click on the cell while my cursor is on this part, click on sheet 2, and here we have the list of states. I select the list of states. Ensure that the list is in a sequential order, either ascending, descending, alphabetically, whichever way it is. Don't let it be in a random order, because then the drop-down list will also appear in a random order. And when you have a list which is not in a defined order, there is a risk that you might not be able to find what you're looking for. For example, I'm looking for Maine, and if it is in a random list, I'll have to check through each record over here to see where is Maine, if it is not arranged in an order. But here we have all the states arranged alphabetically because the states list over here, I have arranged them in an alphabetical order. So here we have the list of states. We can select that. Now, year of passing, it should be something like 2020 or 2019 and so on. Now here, again, we can define the list over here wherein we want whole numbers. It's not a decimal. Now, minimum value and maximum value. Now, Bright University gave it its first degree in the year 2001. And as of now, they are still giving the degree. So I would say for now, if I enter 2021, okay, that's the current year that we are in. But let's say next year, I want to also update 2022. It will not allow me to. So another easier way of doing the validation over here is instead of specifying the maximum limit, just use the year function. You have the year function in Excel, and under that type today. So today's date, year function will extract the year from today's date. And so here I can type 2000. It does not, because the university started giving their degrees from, or the year, the first batch that passed out, that was in 2001. Hence we have this. So 2001 works. What if I type 2022? It does not work because currently we are in 2021, but 2021 will work. So this is how we can have the validation with the help of function. Now CGPA, that could be in decimal format. So having a whole number may not be a good idea. Let me show you how. Let's say the CGPA could be anywhere from the range of the lowest that a college could think of giving would be, let's say, 1, and then to maximum, or let's say 0. There could be cases of 0, absolutely no CGPA given, and a maximum limit of 9, and click OK. Now here we had a whole number here, right? So let's say it is 7.85. I hit enter, it gives me error. Why? Because we are entering something in decimal and we have programmed it to enter only whole number, to accept only whole numbers. So this is not a good idea. Rather, we'll need to select decimal here and minimum of 0 to 9. Now that's perfect. Take a look at this. It's 7.85. It did take it. What if I put 9? It takes it. What if I put 9.01? It will not, because it's greater than 9. But what if I put a 0? It works. So we have someone with a CGPA of 6.72, and that's it. Now let us try to validate our email address. Now for all of the forms of data, we had different options for data validation, be it as a whole number, decimal, list, date and time, and text length as well. But now we need a customized validation here. So when I click on custom, it asks for a formula. If it meets the criteria as mentioned in the formula, then it works. So first, let us cook up a formula over here. Let's prepare the base. I know for sure that any email address mentioned over here will end with @bright.edu. Now, the university that we are referring to over here, it's a fictitious university, nothing to do with any real life university here. It's a case, it's an example that we are working on over here. Because Bright and university are quite common terms, so please don't mistake it with any other university name. It's a fictitious one that we have here. And so let's assume that alice@bright.edu. Any email address that you mention in this email address slot over here in this column, it must end with @bright.edu and not a Gmail email address, and not any other email address that maybe Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, or any other company email addresses, corporate email addresses. Absolutely no. It must be the one affiliated to Bright University. So how do we do that? First, I would start with analyzing this email address. I know one thing for sure, that the last 11 characters, that's @bright.edu, is consistent throughout across. What is not consistent is the one before the @ sign. So we have a validation here, but in order to do that, first let's see if the email address what they have entered is actually correct. Let's say there's another email address as alicewaters@gmail.com. Let's assume now that's a fictitious one that I've come up with. Let's say that's alicewaters196. If this is the email address that we are looking at, I would like to validate whether is this a proper email address given by the university, or is it a bright.edu email address. So we say write from this text, I want to see what the last 11 characters are. So you see it's bright.edu. But what if I apply the same formula down here, right? From this text, 11 characters. That means choose right. So here we are using those functions which we would have come across or discussed earlier in basic Excel as well as in advanced Excel. We'll try to make the best use of those functions to get our validation in place. And you see, this one is @bright.edu and this one is 6@gmail.com. Now that's quite a mess. So here, my first level of validation should be This formula over here should be equal to, in double quotes, I would type @bright.edu. Mind the spelling. Don't make any errors with the placement of each characters in this. If it matches, I get the result as true. That means right of 11 characters from this text should be equal to this. If it matches, it's true. If it doesn't match, I get the result as false. The moment it's a false, I must get an alert stating that it's an invalid or it's not a relevant email address. Well, this is the first level of validation. Let's put this here. I select the cell. Let's take this formula. We have already entered over here. I will copy this formula. Click on the cell. Click on data validation, custom, and enter the formula here and click OK. And here we have this. The validation is in place. Let me clear off the rest. Okay. Here it's @bright.edu. What if it is just ed? Well, it gives me an error. Meanwhile, let me also customize the error message. While I have selected the cell, I go to data validation again. We have a formula here. Input message. Here, I would mention, please enter the email address provided, or let's say by the university, or in case if you want to be more specific, by the Bright University, and error alert. Well, here you can mention this is not a valid bright.edu email address. Maybe you might want to shrink this down here and just mention as please enter your bright.edu email address. So we have an input message here, error alert here, and click OK. Here you see, please enter your bright.edu email address. Now I just changed this to ed. This is not a valid bright.edu email address. Well, that's good. Let's retry. Let's try gmail.com. Well, it's not bright. Now we put over here alice@bright.edu and hit enter. Well, it's giving an error there, but the email address was perfect, right? The last few characters, the last 11 characters were correct. So let's just click on cancel and see what went wrong with the validation. Here we had entered the formula as right of that text. In the beginning, let's put an equal sign and click OK. And now let's try. I say alice@bright.edu. Hit enter and it took. Let's try a different email address. What if it is johnson.m@bright.edu? Well, it works. But now what if it is johnson.m@bright, or just I missed the T. Let's say I missed the T and I put edu. That's the thing. Okay. So now this way we have a proper validation for appropriate email address here. So we have alice@bright.edu. How did we get this validation? Well, click on this data validation. First, instead of directly typing the formula over here, first we tested the formula over here where we know for sure that the last 11 characters of this email address would be in double quotes bright.edu. So we just ensured that the last 11 characters of this email address matches with our format, that's @bright.edu, and it worked. That's all. Now, if you see the next row, I don't see the drop down here, what we had earlier. So similarly, there is no data validation over here. One way of getting the data validation would be a very basic way. That would be just copy this and paste it down and clear the data. that is with the delete button on the keyboard, you cleared it off. Now you see the format, the validation, everything is there. That is one way of doing it. Okay, you have this list. So a better way of having this or managing this would be to select this entire table and format it as a table. In one of our earlier sessions, we had discussed about how to create your own custom style as well, in case if you're not happy with any of these mentioned in the list. But for now, let me select one of these. I like the ones at the bottom over here. Let's say we select the green one. Alright, so that's quite bright over there, but that's absolutely fine. And now you see, by default, the filters are added to the list. So in case if I want, I'll just remove the filters. And let's say here I have another person called Jamie Nelson. Now you see there is a background color applied and Excel will automatically take this. Let me click here and you see it has automatically taken the formatting. It has automatically picked up the drop-down list. We don't need to worry about the list now. It starts from Alabama and ends at Wyoming. Isn't that correct? It starts in Alabama and ends on Wyoming. So everything is covered. No state has been missed in the list. Now what about the date of birth? Is it still doing the validation? I type some random text and hit enter. The data validation has been taken care of. And what about this? I say that's jamie@outlook.com. It gives an error. It must be a bright.edu email address. And what about the names? All the validations in place? Well, over here, you might need to manually enter number 2. Or since we have formatted this as a table, what I recommend is just put a formula here as in previous number plus 1. Alright, so here we have this. I put jamie.n@bright.edu and it takes it. Now the date of birth for Jamie would be, let's say 15 August 2000, how about 2020 or 2015? It gives an error because we have defined that it should not be less than 16 years old, right? So let's put it at 2000 and yes, it worked. Home state, we can select Colorado and then go for year of passing. The year of passing cannot be beyond the range and it cannot be a future date. Right, it must be. So let's put it as 2020 and CGPA. Yeah, I cannot put any random text. It has to be, let's say 7.14. And here we have this. Great. So this is the way how we can play with the validations here. I would recommend you to spend more time and hook up with your own formulas and try to make the best use of the custom. You can do wonders with this custom formatting, custom validation here. It's just that you need to know more and explore it. Or rather, please cut that last sentence. It's just that you need to explore more.